Hi, I'm Nate with Average Jack Archery Pro Shop and Range right here in Phillipsburg, Pennsylvania. And today I want to talk to you about finding the right arrow that fits your bow. So here in my hand, I have a couple different options of arrows from a couple different companies, but there are dozens and dozens more offered by a variety of different companies, and there are numbers all over the shafts and names galore, and you might wonder which one's for you. Well, here we have an example is a 400 spine Easton FMJ. We have a 300 spine Gold Tip XT Hunter and a 500 spine Black Eagle Outlaw. Which one of these is right for you? Well, there's really only one way to find out, and that's by looking at a spine chart. So how do you figure out really what spine you need? Well, thankfully, arrow charts, and I'll pull you in closer to show you this, have made it really simple. You're trying to figure out your arrow length and how much poundage you're shooting based on how aggressive your bow is. So let's break it down on the small end of the scale and the big end of the scale. Spine is based off a number, and the bigger the number, 500, 600, 700, the softer that arrow is, the more it's able to flex. The smaller the number, 200, 250, 300, it's stiffer and it flexes less. And so for guys like me, I have a 31-inch draw length. I shoot upper poundages, 60 to 70 pound range. I need a stiff arrow, right? It's just like if I'm building a wall in my house and it needs to support a lot of weight, I'm not gonna build it out of dowel rods. I'm gonna do it out of 2x4s and 2x6s. Stuff that's really robust and really thick. Stuff that's really stiff and able to handle all of that weight load. If you're on the smaller end, and you're like a lady, you're a kid, you're shooting a shorter arrow, a shorter amount of draw length, as well as a lighter amount of draw weight, say 35, 40, 45 pounds. You can build your wall out of dowel rods, if you will. You're not trying to support nearly as much weight. You don't need something nearly that stiff. And that's what a arrow chart is going off of. It has nothing to do with the speed of the bow, or excuse me, the speed of the arrow. The arrow, how it's flying through the air, they don't care, and neither do I. I want to build it off of the bow that you're trying to shoot. So if you're shooting a trad bow, it's not very aggressive. It doesn't have all the mechanical advantage that the modern day compounds and crossbows have. It's shooting a slower speed, a less aggressive speed, and you don't need nearly as stiff as a spine. The opposite is true of a really aggressive, really fast compound bow, and particularly if you're going to shoot at a really long draw length. You're going to need a stiffer spine to be able to handle all of that mass load and all of that mass point weight. It has nothing to do with the actual speed of the arrow. So let's come over here and let's look at some of these spine charts and see if we can kind of clear up the muddy water, if you will. So every manufacturer of an arrow is going to have their actual spine chart and how it applicably looks. So here's one for Easton. Here's the hunting lineup for Easton, which is easily broken down. Here's Carbon Express. You have Gold Tip over here with their spine charts and how it breaks down. And then you have either going through Victory and everything else. Let's look over here at the Easton hunting because it looks very clean and open. You can see it easily on camera. You'll notice here that the bow range, this is based off the IBO speed of the bow, 301 to 340 feet per second. So this is 90+% of the compounds that are on the market. This arrow spine chart is not meant for traditional bows. Traditional bows have a much slower speed rating and you can really bump down in terms of the spine. But basically you're going off of the bow poundage that you're going to be shooting and then the arrow length. And the arrow length is going to be directly correlated to your draw length, right? That's really what they're looking for. Me at a 31-inch draw length, they are never going to assume that I'm going to be shooting a 23-inch arrow because I'm huge. I'm shooting a 31-inch draw, which means I'm probably going to be shooting between a 30 and a 32-inch arrow, which I'm clear at the other end of the chart. So let's see here. If I go down, I'm shooting around 60 pounds or 65 pounds. So I'm looking here between these two bands. We'll go with 60 pounds, which is between 57 and 61. All I do is I follow that poundage range all the way out until I get to the arrow that I'm going to be shooting. So here's 28 inches, 29 inches, 30 inches. Here's my draw length of 31. My applicable spines that I'm going to be shooting are 330, 320, 300, and then here they also have an aluminum spine number if I was going to shoot an aluminum arrow. So I could shoot any of the Easton's 330, 320, or 300 spine and work on those with my tuning method. This is assuming that you're shooting a normal arrow. 100 grain point, 125 grain point would be my preference, and anywhere between a 15 and 50 grain insert. This is how this is built. If I wanted to shoot a 30-inch arrow, I can still work with that. If I really wanted to shoot a lower end of this poundage range, this would be the 340 here is assuming that lower poundage, that 57 pounds. If I'm going to go shoot that 60 61 pounds, which was the upper end of that weight range, I'd want to be shooting that 300 spine. So I know that I'm going to be shooting 60 pounds at a 31-inch arrow, which means I want to be at the upper end of that poundage and spine range, which means I want to shoot a 300 spine, which is exactly what I shoot. Let's go back and let's look at something like the victory chart or the gold tip chart. I think the victory chart's going to be a little bit easier for us to see. Even better yet, let's actually take a look at this PSE arrow chart, because you notice it's compound bow, which is going to be in that 310 to 340 IBO. And then here we have the traditional bow chart. And you'll notice they're not the same. The compound bow chart doesn't even have any blue markings on it here, because the traditional is going to use that 600 spine. It doesn't need the super stiff spine. You notice that up here at the end of the compound range, where I'm going to be shooting at in this purple, if I go over to my poundage range, right, adjusted draw weight, right, here we go. The IBO speed and adjusted draw weight. My IBO speed is over 301 feet per second. My bow shoots 340 IBO. Go down and find my poundage, which is 60 pounds, 60 to 65 right here. Follow it all the way down to my 31-inch arrow, and I see that I need to shoot a 300 spine. If I was shooting a trad bow, let's say I'm going to still shoot a trad bow close to my arrow length, but at that different same draw weight, excuse me, I'm going to follow it down here. Let's say I'm going to shoot a long bow, follow it down to 60 pounds, which is a pretty stiff long bow, follow it all the way out to a 31-inch arrow, and I see that I need on the edge of a 400 to 500 spine, because that bow is much less aggressive. This is how you find the arrow that matches your bow. You go to the spine chart, find the equivalent poundage and the equivalent IBO speed. This is dictating how aggressive your bow is. This has nothing to do with what you're actually shooting in terms of velocity. It's how aggressive that bow is. Compounds are much more aggressive than trad bows down here, so the spine charts are totally different. Okay, this is how you figure it out. The entire industry is based around people having a standardizing of the adjusted draw weight to the draw length, which correlates to the arrow length, which correlates to the spine. So I hope that's informative for you, and I hope that kind of clears up the water a little bit as what arrow length, poundage, and everything else, how it correlates to the spine chart. Now you'll notice if you go and look at a whole bunch of different companies that their spine charts are all pretty much the same, because the industry wants to be standardized. You pick up a PSE arrow or a gold tip arrow or a Victory or an Easton, they want you to try to be shooting all in that same flavor. So if I shoot a 300 Easton, I should be able to shoot a 300 gold tip and have very consistent similar results. That's something that the industry is built around, and if you're looking to build a bell curve style arrow, that very normalized arrow, which is something that I personally shoot for target, I shoot it for hunting, I take it all around the country and kill plenty of deer with it, that's something that you want to be looking into. Finding your adjusted draw weight, your arrow length, which usually correlates to your draw length, and picking the spine that's right for you. So I hope this video helps. If you still have any questions, you can reach out to us through averagejackarchery.com. Send us a direct email, averagejackarchery@gmail.com. Find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, Average Jack Archery. Hope you're able to get outside and enjoy the sport of archery. Archery hunting, if you so choose. Definitely enjoy God's beautiful creation. Hopefully you can find the right arrow for you, and we'll get to see you next time.